The following is a paid program, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent the opinions of the management of this station or Hamel Broadcasting.
This is 1 in 31, a presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. 1 in 31 is a weekly show devoted to autism spectrum disorder.
Good morning and welcome to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, Chief Development Officer at Anderson Center for Autism. And today I'm speaking with Rick Soshensky, who's the founder and director of the Music Therapy Studio in Kingston, New York. Rick, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
So you reached out to us, and we're thrilled that you did because you have some really interesting work that you're doing in Kingston when it comes to music therapy, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But I also would love to just start by asking you to give us some background on yourself, because you've got quite an interesting, very musical background from what I understand.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's pretty much all musical. When I finished college, I just played music as a hobby or amateur things, as young people do. But
what was your instrument? I'm curious. What was your main instrument?
My natural instrument is guitar.
Okay.
But music is just in my blood, as they say. And when I finally graduated and realized I have to try and carve some kind of, way to make a living and create an identity in the world, the only thing that really made sense to me was music. So at that time, of course, being a guitar player and a songwriter and something of a singer, I didn't consider myself a great singer, but I worked hard to develop that.
Yeah.
I figured, what you do with those skills is you try to become a recording artist. So I did that. I moved into New York City and played on all the clubs and played with different bands and wrote songs and made demos at the time. That was the days before of home studios. So, you had to kind of go into a professional recording studio and make a demo and send it off to record companies and so forth. And, I did all that. And it, in New York City, everybody's hustling for the same thing, really, for the...
Right, that's in the music world, right?
Yeah, everybody in their mind is the next big thing, as I was.
Yeah.
Anyway, to sort of summarize 10 to 15 years down to 2 minutes, I wasn't really making it in the recording songwriting field. I did become a prominent cover band player, you might say.
Okay.
And I traveled all around the world. I got in sort of the biggest party band in the world at the time, which was the Lester Lannan Band, which played the most prestigious parties in the world. So I actually played the wedding of Princess Diana was there. I actually met Princess Diana, if you can believe that. But it was the wedding of Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson. What's that?
Shook her hand, I believe.
I did shake her hand, not because of me, but because of her, because she was such a kind person. I mean, none of the other people there would have thought of doing this, but she actually came up on the stage and thanked all the musicians personally.
Amazing.
And
that's great.
Yeah. So that's how I got to meet Princess Diana briefly, which of course was a shocking moment because this is a face you see, on TV and magazines everywhere, and to see the actual person is kind of shocking. So, yeah, but that's the kind of parties that band played, very prominent parties and famous people, rich and famous. I met a lot of rich and famous people through that. But that really wasn't what I was heading for. I really wanted to be a recording artist of my own music. And so I wasn't satisfied with that. Then, I don't know, I started to just get a little older and I started to get a little nervous that maybe this wasn't going to happen for me and what else could I do?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I didn't really know about music therapy at the time, really. It wasn't something I looked into. or had heard about. But my father saw something on TV and he called me up and he said, I think this is what you're looking for. This fits you. And so I looked into it and, I pursued it. And eventually I went back to school for master's at NYU. And that became my career, and the performing part of it started to fade out. And
so Rick, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
You got me thinking here. So thank you for that background so far. It sounds like there's more, but when you were kind of having that realization that maybe that wasn't exactly feeding you in the way that you needed to be fed and wanted something different, and then your dad made that connection to music therapy, do you remember what it was specifically about either what he sent you or what you started reading about and learning about that felt like it was filling a gap for you? Was it the helping people with the passion of the music that you were so into, or was it something specific to people with special needs? Like, what do you remember about that experience?
I think I had an empathetic sort of streak in me that cared about people that were vulnerable and in a rough situation. That was natural to me. And so I used to volunteer in different places like hospitals and psych institutions and nursing homes. And I used to see people who were, did not appear well, come to life in the music, sometimes in very profound ways, meaning somebody who was just seemingly out of it, suddenly becoming animated and happy and showing capabilities that people didn't even think they had, people with memory loss or people non-conversational being able to sing. And, this is very common in music. And, I felt that this was an important thing for me, that music could be used for a healing modality, not for something that was for, fulfillment of my ego needs to become famous or rich or whatever. And so I got drawn to that. And I found that I was much better at that than I was at getting on stage and entertaining people. I was much better with the sort of intimate ability to connect with people through music than I was entertaining people from a stage. And it was very fulfilling to me when you saw somebody that other people didn't know how to connect with, or, were kind of lost in a crowd, suddenly being able to communicate and connect and have capability, sort of coming out of the shroud of whatever disability they were dealing with, was, very fulfilling to me.
It sounds like you were providing a shared experience.
Yeah, but there's something about music that's very special. It is not, to transition to spectrum disorders, if you want to call it that. I don't even know what name to call it, because to me, it's just people. Yeah. But, you have people that have difficulty with conventional connection, conventional communication and conventional socialization and this and that. And through music, they can transcend those abilities and they can become, important members of their community, and their whole identity can shift towards somebody who, is capable of doing something meaningful rather than somebody who's just needing, help from somebody else. Yeah. And I love that. I love that. I have so many stories about that.
Well, we're going to take a break in a couple of minutes, and then I want to come back and listen to some of those stories. I hope you have one or two that you can share that really stand out to you. But one last question before we go to break, particular to you, because you're reminding me a little bit of my grandfather, who's no longer here, but he was a dentist by trade, but he was really a musician. He was a self-taught musician. And he played the resorts up in the Catskills. He was a sax player, but he was a band leader. And as he got older, once he moved into a like a retirement community and then later into a nursing home. He brought his music with him. And I remember that he would go around and he would sort of drum up these former musicians of his own era who hadn't played in like 40 years, 30 years. And they would form bands and play whatever, the community room or go to local places. And similarly, his experience was that it brought him joy because he was a band leader at heart, but he also got these people who were otherwise sitting in a chair all day doing very little and sort of going introspective back out into the world. So you're reminding me of that. So I'm wondering, what did you have an experience, if you don't mind me asking, when you were much younger, maybe even before college, when you were a student or, a high schooler or something, where someone did that for you, or you had a musical experience where you remember feeling like more engaged than you had before because of someone introducing you to music or playing you a certain kind of music?
I don't know if I can relate exactly to that scenario, because I was sort of born with music. It just came through me naturally.
That's cool.
Nobody had to really introduce me to it per se. They just gave me a guitar.
Really? That's awesome. That's amazing. And you're wearing a "Here Comes the Sun" shirt, which no one else can see, but I can say it because I can see it.
The Beatles. Of course, somebody gave me this shirt. I have the parents that come to my studio give me all my T-shirts.
Oh, okay, very nice. Very nice. Well, it just speaks to me. It speaks to me because I also come from a musical family, and I did not continue to pursue it too much. But both my children and all of my sort of ancestors have been very musical, and so I do understand what you're talking about when it's a language in and of itself.
Yes, it is. It is a language, and it bypasses many of the difficulties folks can have with speech and social connection and attention spans and self-esteem and etc. Through music, we can gain the ability to find capability there where maybe in some cases there's no other way. I mean, there are people who are just like I was. There are people who are naturally musical. And I mean, I help everybody, but it's clear that some people are a little bit more fluent naturally than others. And, those people can thrive. I mean, that becomes, the most important part of their lives is their ability to...
I absolutely agree. And that's a good place to take a quick break. We're going to come back, though, in a minute and speak more with you, Rick Soshensky, founder and director of the Music Therapy Studio in Kingston, New York. This is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and we'll be right back.
If you talk and they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
And now 1 in 31 continues on 100.7 WHUD. This is a weekly community affairs presentation from the Anderson Center for Autism.
Welcome back to 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky, and I'm talking today with Rick Soshensky, founder, director of the Music Therapy Studio in Kingston, New York. Rick, your background is really cool. The way you described kind of how you got to this place and how you found music therapy and why it speaks to you is really helpful background. Let's use the next 10 minutes or so to talk about the music therapy studio, the studio itself, what you offer, what people can expect if they were to contact you or stop in, so people know that, what you're doing and can access it if they so choose.
Okay. The website is themusictherapystudio.com, so that's easy enough to remember.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get in touch, it's all right there. I worked in many schools and institutions and hospitals and so forth for many years, getting into the field. I've been in the field now for over 30 years. And when it was time to start my own business, I started it. It's in Midtown Kingston. At first, I called it Hudson Valley Creative Arts Therapy Services. Then I shortly changed it to Hudson Valley Creative Arts Therapy Studio. And now it's just the Music Therapy Studio. But the idea of the studio is to declinicalize it, right? It's not the program or the clinic or the center or other things like that can be more related to, medical or quasi-medical types of, places. A studio is where musicians play,
Yes.
right? So that is the concept behind the name. And, so people come there, and my question is to myself, how do I play music with this person? That's it. I'm not that interested in their diagnosis or what other people think about them or, what their history is, that people think they can or can't do or problems they have. It's just, how do we play music? And we'll start anywhere, whatever the person can do. Play a little drums, sing a little song, get down tonight. Do a little dance, make a little. All right. Anyway, get back. So we start where we can. I find the starting place, and you never know where that's going to lead. And people can make amazing progress, whether they've had any experience playing music or not. Most people haven't had any, actual experience. And so people come and we see them sometimes as individuals or sometimes in a smallish group. But I've actually become more interested in the idea of community these days, meaning people just being together and playing music. And so, we do many different combinations. On Friday afternoons, which anybody listening to this could come if they wanted, we have an open free group. Friday 1 to 3 is just a community of people who get together, and we play music in different, types of configurations. We play for each other. People show what they're working on, or sometimes we play together. We sing songs. We record different songs. We write songs. We just make music, and that's really what it's all about. And all the things that sort of clinically people try and talk about, like speech or communication or social relations or attention span and so forth. That's not something I specifically target. We just play music, and that comes through the playing of the music, and it really does. I mean, it's not hit or miss. I mean, it's hit every time.
Yeah.
Some people are, like I said, a little bit more naturally capable, but you just never know. You really can have somebody coming in that showed no capability at all, and if you're just patient with them and accept them for who they are, then they can thrive, and they will, become.
What you're describing brings to my mind, there's a very important difference between low expectations and no expectations. And I think that no expectations in terms of what, how prepared someone is, how well trained they are, what they're working on, where they're at, gives an openness to anything that could happen. Whereas setting a low expectation is different. It has more, to me, a negative connotation of sort of, I expect very little. Whereas you're saying, I expect to just make music together and see what happens. It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility. You're describing sort of different configurations. So that I'm guessing means somebody might choose an instrument. They might shift to a different instrument. Maybe there is different, I don't describe to me how you do it. Do you choose music yourself based on who's coming in, or, and do you see a lot of repeat players?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, no, go ahead. You answer the first question.
We have, it's a studio like any other studio. You walk in, It's full of instruments. And, so if I'm seeing somebody for the first time, I'm going to see what they want to do. What kind of music do you like? What do you want to sing? Do you want to play this? Do you want to play that? I'm just going to let them do whatever they want to do and try and support that. And have a starting point and make the best music we can at that particular moment, based on what they're doing, and I'll try and support that best I can. People always have some idea what they want to do. I mean, you never really get somebody who's going to come in and not make some choice about what they want to do. So it's just supporting that, and that's the starting place into the music. And
so, Rick, sorry, we're running a little low on time. Here's maybe a last question. What do you hope people get out of the fact that you've opened the music therapy studio and that you're there and available for them to come to you? What do you want people to, what would feel like success to you?
Success is seeing people improve, as they gain more confidence and more capability, and come to accept themselves and others, and feel part of what's going on, and find joy and communication and connection. That's what we look for, and that's what we do. Not sure I exactly answered your question.
You absolutely answered the question.
I think going back to what you just said, you can't assume that because somebody has some form of diagnosis or, has trouble fitting into the normal workaday world, that they can't thrive, given the right opportunity. And that's what I find. So,
Rick, we have to wrap up. Okay. I know the time goes quickly. I want to make sure we leave time for another shout out of your website, which is themusictherapystudio.com. I assume that's where they can get in touch with you. They can find out schedules of classes and opportunities to come in. The Friday free session, right, from Fridays 1 to 3.
It's there. All there. My book is there.
Great. More information and ways to get in touch with you. And I really want to thank you. And just to make it clear, you answered my last question about what does success look like beautifully. I was thrilled to hear you say things that all revolve around an individual's sort of own self-determination of what brings them joy and happiness and engagement and connectivity. Sounds like you're doing exactly that. And I'm thrilled that you're so close by to where we are. And I'm really happy that you reached out, because it was a pleasure speaking to you today.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. This is Rick Soshensky from the Music Therapy Studio in Kingston, New York. Again, themusictherapystudio.com. Rick, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Sure. Pleasure.
This is 1 in 36, the weekly talk show on topics related to autism spectrum disorder. I'm your host, Eliza Bozensky. And remember, Anderson cares.
You've been listening to 1 in 31, a weekly presentation from Anderson Center for Autism. Join them for another edition of the show next weekend.